Welcome, comrades. Today we talk about the Cold War. A lot of people talk about the Cold War. We're gonna deal with it a lot. You're gonna talk about all these different events and NSC-28 and expansionist tendencies, spheres of influences, long telegram, the X article, and pay attention to all that. But the seminal question, the one little question we must ask is why? Why do these two sides stand off against each other for so long? Um, 45 years, as a matter of fact, in this kind of intense standoff, made ever more so intense by the issue of nuclear weapons, which we will bring in as we go on here. Um, But I want to look at these three things, these causes of why these two sides stood off. Um, and to do this, actually, there's an outline for you. So under the sections, or under this section's material, click on the PDF, the Cold War / Origins. Go ahead, do it now. No, seriously, go click on the Cold War Origins. Yeek! Bring it up. I'm waiting. Got it? Okay, great. So you can follow along. Um, Three main things. And I want to start with the fact that it was simply an ideological conflict. Um, there was an issue of two different systems, two different mindsets going head to head against each other. Um, but it's on two levels. A lot of people like to say, oh, it's democracy versus communism. Well, that doesn't even make sense. The two things are not in opposition. There could easily be a democratic communist system. There could easily be a capitalist authoritarian system, etc. So the issue is that it's two levels. First, it's capitalism versus communism and democracy versus authoritarianism. Um, but let's take the first one. Capitalism, of course, is the idea of everybody has the right to follow their own well-being. It's the freedom of opportunity, right? This our concept of the American dream. You follow what you want to do, you make money, etc., etc. Um, on the other side, communism is about equality. It's about the fact that everybody's equal. It's not about holding people back. It's about bringing people up. So it's that question, are you interested in having the opportunity to achieve anything you want? Or are you interested in, well, everybody actually living a decent life, as opposed to some people on the streets, or starving, or unable to feed themselves, whatever. Um, so it's that idea of capitalism versus communism. Um, the second level of that is democracy versus authoritarianism. And this is the idea of choice versus efficiency. So, in democracies, this is not an efficient system. If you are unaware, the system of government you live in is one of the most inefficient systems on the face of the earth. However, on some minor level, we all get a say in it. We all get a choice in what happens. Authoritarianism is where a small group of people actually lead. Sometimes one, of course, in this case, it's a council. And the idea is that that person is going to lead to do what's best and most efficient for everybody. And it works. That system, the way it was originally set up, mind you, was very efficient. A decision needs to be made, it's made. It's not going through months and months of debates and stalling, etc., and kind of bodies of legislature. So that's really the idea. It's that, are you interested in opportunity and choice, or are you interested in equality and efficiency? Both have their merits, both have their problems. The problem is these two cannot coexist in one country. Um, and both kind of hate the other system. If you're going to be a capitalist society, you can't be a communist society. If you're going to be a democratic society, you can't allow authoritarianism, etc., etc., etc. All right. So that's the ideological conflict. That's behind it all. The The second part is the more practical thing that happened. There was a mutual suspicion between the United States and the Soviet Union from the very beginning, mostly from its leaders. But, of course, at this point we're talking about coming out of World War II. And that mutual suspicion created global tension and drove the war on both sides. Stalin, for his part, he had some justification for this. The U.S. had financially supported the Mensheviks against the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks are his party during the Russian Civil War. So the U.S. had already supported his enemy kind of early on. It took the U.S. from the time they joined the war till the time they actually got into the war 2 solid years to kind of muster their troops and train them in England, etc., etc. During that time, 8 million Russians died in battle. You might hold some grudge on that. Another aspect is that in the negotiations, in all the peace treaty talks, he kind of saw Churchill and Roosevelt as ganging up on him, trying to get what they wanted. And he saw this because they did. We know this. We can read Roosevelt's and Churchill's letters and their memoirs, and they talk about it. Okay. More than anything, though, the U.S. did not tell Stalin that the U.S. had an atomic bomb. They told Churchill. They told the leader of France. They told the leader of a couple other places. Stalin was supposed to be the closest ally of the U.S. at the time. Stalin was the one helping the United States defeat both the Japanese and the Nazis. And the United States hid the idea of the bomb until after they dropped it. In fact, the U.S. never told Stalin. They told Japan about it before they told Stalin. For the U.S. side, they were suspicious because communism from its very inception is global by nature. Karl Marx talks about a global communist revolution. So it seems like it's naturally going to expand to other countries. And the other is, frankly, that Stalin had shown that he was aggressive and that he was determined, not only in the war, but with his own people. And that this was a person unwilling to stop. So you can see why they're both very suspicious. The last part, the number 3, after ideological conflict and mutual suspicion, is the natural inclination of both countries. And it's something we don't think about, but it's something that's going to be in both of these sides' mind. It's that both of these countries have expansionistic tendencies. We know the U.S. was expansionistic, right? We've talked about imperialism before that. The U.S. had started as a couple little colonies on the East Coast and expanded all the way across, right? Filled in the middle, then actually started expanding, took places like Guam and Puerto Rico and the Philippines. Well, at that same time, the Soviet Union, or at that time Russia, of course, was expanding all the way across Siberia and what we now call Mongolia, and all the way across. The reason why Russia is so big is this period that the U.S. was expanding, so was Russia. So both of these countries are expanding, and they're expanding towards each other. So there is this idea that both these countries are going to want to continue expanding. A lot of mutual suspicion, a lot of mutual distrust, both of the leaders and the people of each other's countries. Does this help us understand why it went on for 45 years? Maybe not. But at least it helps us understand why it started. We'll get to the 45 years part in a bit. Have a good one.